This is Jasmine.
What's good, everybody? In the conversation with Mo Fame, Jasmine 105.7. Thank you for being here. And today I have a special guest with me. Now, the big question is, what hasn't he done? Not what he's done. Because it's pretty much been there, done that, still doing it. Look, I dug deep and I found that this guy worked at the cyber cafe once. He's shocked. Started off working at the cyber cafe, then moved on to set up NigerianHipHop.net, right? Am I correct? Is that the name of the website? I would ask him. Moved on there, then moved to the NetNG. From then on, moved to Paul's. Once a chief marketer at OP. Loose Talk Giant, of course. What am I missing? Former rapper. Had to put that in the mix. Once a rapper, always a rapper. Osagie is in the building, ladies and gentlemen. What's good, G?
What's good, my brother?
Nice to see you, man.
Good, my brother?
Nice to see you. First of all, congratulations on the Loose Talk Live.
Thank you
Breezy
so much,
Tunes. Man. Awesome. That was totally awesome. Shut down. And to think that the Loose Talk pod will be 10 years next year.
Wow, 10 years, just like that. I was talking to the guys, and to be honest, I hadn't even thought about it until my main man Chuksodo called me and said, Loose Talk is going to be 10 next year, and what are you going to do? And then he really hit me, and I spoke to the guys. Actually, we started this thing in 2016. And podcasting wasn't very big in 2016. Now everybody has a podcast. It's like the 2010 version of having a blog.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody has a podcast now, and it has gone on to be really big. But 10 years ago, it was quite nonsense. It was quite... Even when we were doing it back then, some of the guys who we had pitched it to, or who we wanted to work with, or even in-house where we were recording, didn't believe. Didn't understand it. How are you going to have audio-only version for what? 2 hours? What are you going to talk about for 2 hours? But 10 years later... At least 9 years later, it looks as if, it's the next best.
Do you consider yourself a pioneer of podcasts in Nigeria? Do you consider yourself as one of the greats?
To be honest, no. Because when we started, there were a sizable amount of podcasts in Nigeria already, right? But genre-wise, they tilted towards mostly gospel. So most of the church were already putting audio formats. Remember, you go to the church at the end of the service.
I'm not the church, so I can't relate.
Okay, for those who attend church, at the end of the service back then, right? You already had the sermon on CD. Remember, real quick, just at the end of the service, you could go to the counter and buy the same sermon you just heard like 30 minutes ago. They were that efficient. And so what I started to notice is that they started uploading it on podcasts, in podcast version for their diaspora audience and for people. So I noticed that was happening already. A couple of people already had podcasts in Nigeria. There was a podcast Andre Blaze was hosting.
Shouts to Andre Blaze.
At the time. It was called My Africa, and it was really big. I ended up hosting the second season and picking it up before leaving Pulse at the time. So you had some podcasts already playing around, but to be honest, for us, what inspired us to do the podcast was Brilliant Idiots. Charlemagne the God and Andrew Schultz. Yeah. We were big fans. When we stumbled on Brilliant Idiots, we went to listen to 2 years of backlog of the Brilliant Idiots. It was the Brilliant Idiots, and then it was another podcast under the same podcast umbrella of the Brilliant Idiots. And interestingly, the episode that got us to discover the Brilliant Idiots was the one that had DJ Copy on it. I think she had tweeted it, so we're like, oh, what's this? And then we listened, and I was working with two other amazing people, Ayomide Tayo and Steve Dede, who were fellow journalists at where we were working. We used to have these conversations every day. As a matter of fact, people in the newsroom would sit around us just to hear some of those stories and conversations. And one day we just moved to the reception area and said, guys, let's just curate this thing and put it out, once and for all. And our colleague at the time, Princess Abumere, she was the entertainment editor. She came in and said, what are you guys up to? So we're trying to start a podcast. And she said, I want to produce this podcast. And that's how I started.
That's great. How did you connect with AOT2 and Steve?
Okay. I'd known Ayomide Tayo in my blogging days, when I ran a blog called Rhymesville, before moving on to work with Huey, Faz, and a lady called Sade at NigerianHipHop.net. I'd known Ayo. We used to attend hip hop shows. We're like backpackers. I had my backpack. He had his backpack. We'll take all the pictures, then put it on Facebook, write some stories, and put it on blog. So he had a blog called Pop Off Central.
Yes.
And this is when Facebook was really big.
It was heavy.
Like I knew Mo on Facebook.
Yeah.
Everybody knew each other on Facebook.
Yeah.
We were all Facebook friends. So we used to like record, just put stuff up and all of that. So I used to this guy called AOT2, you know. And so I met him at the event. It was Dr. G HNIC's event. It was called it was the biggest hip hop event. The name will come back. It was the biggest hip hop event in Nigeria at the time. Everybody used to come through. This is when Nigerian hip hop artists and largely other artists were very close to each other, supported each other. If someone was having an album launch, everybody was there.
Yeah.
You know. So we used to meet at that event. It used to happen every last Saturday of the month, and then we would just connect. And so that's where I met him, and then we became friends. He had his own blog called Pop Off Central as well. He did his first mixtape. I did the intro of the mixtape and had a song. Recently, he sent me those things. Like, I don't know whether.
How do you feel about hearing?
I mean, to be honest, you're a bit embarrassed, but then you're like, you know.
Is it something that you would want us to hear?
No. You know, those days are far gone behind. But yeah, so that's how I met him. Yeah. And I met Steve as we met at the launch of the Okonore Twins studio. They had like a fashion studio, and then I met him. But my name had started to go around, and I knew he worked at Entertainment Express at the time. For Ayo, he worked at Hip Hop World magazine, so but he used to review albums for the NetNG, and we used to then pay him for those reviews. But for Steve, I think I had a conversation with him. We're trying to expand the newsroom then, and I told him to come on board, and he joined as one of the staff writers. He was a correspondent, and he did very well. Then he left. I also left, and we moved to Pulse. And when I did move to Pulse, I think one of the first conversations I'll have with my boss is that I need to bring in these two guys. They're like mercenaries, and I need to show the newsroom at the time what it looks like to be a standard journalist. And so we brought them in to be, correspondents, staff writers, and all of that.
You're a man of many parts, really. You've done all sorts to get where you are today.
And a lot that's not documented.
And a lot that's not, yes. You've done a lot, from writing to podcasting to rapping to basically supporting the genre that is hip-hop and music generally. Do you think you get the credit that you deserve?
I actually think I get credit.
You're like the first person that is saying that.
Yeah,
I feel like.
I actually think I get the credit because people reach out to me and say, I remember you from a certain part of my life, and I remember all the things you were doing. So I'm not going to be, and I'm not just trying to be humble. I do think I get the credits from people out there, and I think because like a lot of work I did, was out there. Again, there's context to it. I was doing a lot of work that is documented. So a lot of people who say they don't get the credit were probably behind the boards. Like a producer who was behind the boards in the 1.0, 2.0 Afrobeats era probably didn't get his name on any of the back of the jackets or anything, right? They don't get the credit they deserve. Or I'll give you an example. You hear a beat like Styley. Joe Kenny produced that beat. Yeah. Joe Kenny doesn't get
the credit
a lot of credit and recognition, right? Because he was working with like OJB at the time. I'm sure he did a lot of work with OJB and he doesn't get that credit, so I can understand. But for someone like me, a lot of stuff I did was documented. There's a lot of other stuff I've done as well. A&R, like a number of
at
albums.
Extreme. How did I forget that? You once A&R for Extreme Music.
I actually worked as a road manager, distributor, and an A&R for the label.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really great. So in all of this, your journey, right? I'm very fascinated with it. Your switch and you're always just moving and everything. Where has the concept of or the thought of failing ever come in? Have you ever considered yourself to say, you know what? I failed at this, or I'm about to fail. And if so, how did you overcome such thoughts?
Great question. Actually, it is my fear of failure that drives me to the next thing, So my background, right? I'm born in the mid 80s, and you grow, from that period, living like a privileged life, middle class, and then what happens in the 80s and 90s with the economic downturn, sadly or fortunately, pushes your family into like a lower class, right? And then some of the privileges you had, you don't have anymore. And then you go through that process, and then you find yourself again in a privileged situation. You've built up some sort of trauma that constantly reminds you that failure is not an option because you have experienced it before, and some of these traumas we've internalized and normalized it, that I don't even think is trauma until I then start having conversations with people who haven't experienced anything like that, and they're close to tears because they feel like, oh, you've been through a lot, and it can be as simple as being robbed when you move to your apartment for the first time, with your family. You move to a new area, and on the first day of being in that area, you are robbed. Something as we don't count it as trauma, right? But I was having a conversation with LD the Don, shout out to him, and he said, Osagie, we've experienced a lot of trauma growing up. The mere fact that you have to jump off a bus without the bus stopping is trauma. But we've normalized this so much, so there's different it's fear of failure. For me to say, I don't want to stagnate. What do I need to do to get to the next level? Or how do I pivot to another industry? Because failure cannot be an option.
So is there any part of your life work that you've considered to have failed and say, you know what, this didn't work, I got to move on to the next? Is there any? Because the ones that we see, I'd like to say you've been highly and largely successful in those.
Yeah.
Maybe except for the rap.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. It's perspective at the end of the day. Are those things failures? Are they losses or are they lessons? Losses, we all take L's. Everybody takes L's. You probably tried something out and you failed at it, but then the experiences from that thing weren't thrown away. You then apply those experiences to other things. So I'll say, okay, when I was starting off, right, at one point in my mind, I said, okay, I want to be a rapper. And I started writing. I co-managed a studio with my friends back in Iobo. Dagreen once visited our studio, by the way. This was maybe in 2007 when he dropped the first album, Still on the Matter, that era. So we started building. I dropped my first mixtape at the time, and all of that. And all that experience is what makes me A&R a good rap album today, because I've gone through all of that. But did I? Technically, yes. At some point, I started building up the fame with being a rapper. I was featured in Sound City magazine, Blast magazine as next to Blow. Tosin Buckner is playing my records on radio. My record is reaching number 1 on the top 10 at on a radio station. Flyers are coming out and my name appears before some popular rappers today. All of that is happening, right? Mo, this thing.
I know.
Come
now,
on,
but for the purpose of
no,
of
even for you, I'm living the life.
Can we leave me alone though?
So all that is happening, but then you get to a critical point where you say, now I'm even working at another studio as a recording engineer. So I take people's vocals. That's what I do. I'm a recording engineer. I take the vocals on, then whoever comes to mix and masters does that. So you're doing all of that, but you then have to come to a point which a lot of people don't. You have to be pragmatic. You have to be serious about your life. I come to a point and say, you start seeing hip hop take off, right? So two things actually. It was two things for me. It was skill wise, and it was, do I have the money to push this thing? So I don't have the money to push this thing. I don't want to be in the limbo. I don't want to be that guy struggling all the time, that can't even style himself well, that can't even get the best productions. Bro, production at that point was now getting super expensive, right? Can I afford this kind of production? I can't afford it anymore. Then the second thing, skill sets. Are you really a great rapper? You can write well, but are you delivering well? I remember Big Boy Remix featuring Rockers, Proto, and Iceberg Slim. LD, I heard the record and I heard 3 of them rap on the remix, and I asked myself, are you playing on this level? If you're not playing on this level, because this is what is in the market, just forget it. And that's when I started to scale back, and then I started to meet other people who needed help promoting their own rap records, right? And everybody couldn't get on the big blogs at the time. So what did? I I created my own blog to put my own music and then help people out. And I started charging people to get their music on my platform. And I could also do some sort of PR to get their music on other people's platform. And my brother, when money starts coming through one angle, right? Through one pipeline,
this is it.
Yeah, you start putting all effort and attention into that pipeline to get more money.
Great. Let's delve now into Afrobeats as we know it. At what point do you think Afrobeats took off? And at what point would you say, look, this is Afrobeats 1.0 era. This is where Afrobeats pretty much kickstarted for me. Is it the era of Junior and Pretty? Shouts to them. The era of Pretty Busy Boys. Would you consider that era as a start of urban contemporary music in Nigeria? Or is it the era that ushered in this era that we are now? You know, the likes of Remedies, Defo Clan, and them boys. At what point do you think Afrobeat took off? And who would you largely credit the taking off of Afrobeat to, whether it's back end or front end?
That's a great question. So you can look at this multifaceted, right? Personally, for me, when I knew something was going to shift in like the Nigerian music landscape, you won't believe it. It's not even like the 99, and I'll go back into there because those are the monumental periods. But personally for me was when the One Berry video drops. Night House featuring Tito Simos, Sosked, and Mo Cheddar. When the video dropped, because these guys were younger, I knew something had changed. Like that video dropping, I watched that video, I was like, all right, this thing has gone to another level. Where we're playing on now is on an international level. You know, that's personally for me. But like you mentioned, the 90s era where you had the Junior Pretty, Busy Body, those guys, great music. But I would classify it as that 90s era. I think where it really took off was 1999. Like, that's the number. If you remember on Waka Wiki MCs, right? When Idris starts rapping and he goes 94, 95, 90, and he says 99, 99. You know, that's the era where everything took off. It was the end of democracy. It was the start of civilian rule. It was the start of young Nigerians expressing themselves. It was the start of private radio, private media being able to be as free as possible without the control of the military governments. You know, that era was when people started to express themselves the most. They could be critical of the government and not get any backlash. I remember Sans Sultan's first album. He was super critical of
the compulsory textbook.
Yeah,
was it?
no, that's the second album. The first album is called. That's the name
How do
of
you
the album.
pronounce that?
I don't know. You know, I guess you spell it like he spelled it as KPHS.
Yeah. KPSCHEW.
www.
Yeah.
You know, you have to stretch the his. But yeah, that's the album that had Jack Bajantis, that had some of those records, you know. So you'd be critical of the government and not get any backlash. You know, at the time, the president, Obasanjo, was seen as a very liberal president that, you know, could take public critic.
Until Idris came along with Jaga Jaga.
And then he got in his feelings for a minute, you know. But that's where we saw the likes of Tribesmen, Plenty Nonsense, right? Plenty Nonsense is basically a song about like the social structure of the country. One verse was dedicated to police, another verse was dedicated to like family troubles, and I think the third verse was dedicated to religion. You know, so people could be openly critic about society. Plantation Boys, they just talked about love, and Remedies talked about having fun. So those three guys, which you would notice were all in groups, by the way, because again, there was a lot of camaraderie, there was a lot of collaboration, and community was very big at the time. Because again, money wasn't involved. When you sprinkle money, everybody goes their separate ways. But those were like some of the flagship artists, along with Baba D, Sans Sultan, Defo Clan, of course, which had Alibi, Hazados, and Rabbi, and Buzman, and the other guys. So again, another group, you know. And then, of course, the Swap Through team that came to Lagos, the Rugged Mans, and all of that. But the first set, the 1999 set, which I consider the first generation of Afrobeats, were the ones that took it to the next level.
How do you classify the set before? Because I've been in a conversation where, you know, people just say we don't like the way they treat these guys before 99.
Yeah.
And I was very particular and intentional about how I put them before, because I wanted to hear your opinion on how you would classify them. And you classify them as the 90s era. But do you think that's enough?
Well, it is what it is. In the US now, they classify, the Sugar Hill Gang and co as the 80s era, and then the KRS-Ones and co as the 90s era. Biggie and Pac, they're the 90s era.
So if you were curating today, and you had a song like Biggie Bele by Pretty Busy Boys,
I put it, if I was going to create a playlist, I would put it as 90s Nigerian pop
not
music.
Afrobeats.
I won't say Afrobeats.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because if we want to do that, then we can scale all the music before then into Afrobeats. Afrobeats is such a generic nomenclature or titling of Nigerian music that it's formless.
So why do you think that is? And I understand how the term Afrobeats came to play. But do you think it's proper though? And do you think we're just leaving it because, we can't do anything about it?
I think it's important to document properly, because if we leave everything formless, other people will come and document it and you won't like it. It's better for us to do this documentation ourselves and say this is what it is.
And you think that's what has happened to our music?
Yes. The word Afrobeats itself was birthed in the UK because passionate African DJs were trying to get African music in the juggler systems on radio. And you already know this thing more, right? You work in a radio station. If the music doesn't have a genre, you can't even put it in the system.
Yeah.
So like, okay, what is this? Is this worldwide? This is Afrobeats. It's coming from Africa. And then you can convince the white man, and then he can put it, in the system and group everything together. Does he have? Of course, the detriments are there, but in the long run, we got the music into the system. And then from there, everything can cascade back into what it is. Oh, this is Fuji music. This is, okay, I don't even want to say, like, this is Nigerian pop music. This is Amapiano. This is Azonto music. But it has to go under one umbrella first and then cascade into subgenres over a period of time.
And the issue of naming Afrobeats, right, is been largely credited to DJ Branty.
And a group and a bunch of other people.
A bunch of other people. But only recently I had watched Ice Prince say, look, I don't want to take credit for naming this genre Afrobeat, but I can tell you that it was my song, Oleku, who had attracted a conversation along the lines of, how do we label this?
It's very possible.
And then he was there and he said, Afrobeats?
I wasn't there, but if he says that, I would not want to think Ice Prince would lie. By the way, he's a great guy. So, I wouldn't. So that could have happened. And this is the problem with documentation. Every other genre, you will see the proper documentation to say this is the person that came up with the name. This is how it was trademarked. This is what happened, XYZ. But for us, we already have a problem with documenting history anyways. And this is even outside music. If you look at any other thing like politics and whatever, we have a problem documenting things. Because I also feel like in Nigeria, we have a tendency not to go to the past because we don't want to open old wounds. You already know where I'm going to, right? But this has now played into other genre and other classes. And that's why we are very hesitant to discuss history. And it's one of the biggest problems.
That's fair enough. Afrobeats hit an all-time high a couple years ago. Hit global status, right? But in big 2025, do you think our global status is diminishing? Do you think we're retrogressing? Do you think we're exporting more but registering less impact at this time?
I think in 2025, what we've seen, and I think we can beat our chest and say this because this is October and we have like some privileged knowledge to know what is coming out before the end of the year. So we can have an idea to already do a summary of the year, right? What we're experiencing is a plateau. And that's fine, right? It's like you get on the high road when you're in your car and you rev your car. At some point, you keep a speed. Doesn't mean you're not moving, right? It just means like growth has plateaued. And we're talking about sonically now. This year, it's hard to argue who the breakout star is. This year, it's hard to argue what is the breakout Afrobeat, what's the song of the year. These things do happen, and it's fine. I think what we are experiencing now is we've hit at an all-time high. Shout out to our those who trade crypto. I'm sorry for what happened recently. We've hit an all-time high and then we're steadily plateauing now. And plateauing is not a bad thing because it's moving. And I think what can happen over a period of time is new entrants come with new sound and all of that and take it to the next level. However, I think what has engineered some of this is that everybody's moving into a particular direction because, again, the labels they are signed to, right, have sort of puts them on that conveyor belt to make that type of music, right? So we're also in a limbo. Are we creating music for like an international diaspora audience? Are we creating music for a local audience? If we're creating for local, does local have the spending power to pay for concerts, etc.? No. What is the subscription? What's the cost of subscription for streaming platforms in Nigeria versus streaming platforms in the diaspora? I'll give you an example. I think Apple Music costs less than 2,000 naira, right?
1,009.
1,009. Yeah. That's like $1. While the same subscription outside the country in the US is $9.99. In Europe, I think it's up to like $11.99. So the CPM rates are lower in Nigeria. Should Afrobeat artists then make music for people who they will stream your music but can't pay you enough? Or should I make the music a bit more palatable and a bit more synthetic for a diaspora audience? So these are the conversations going on, and that's where we are right now.
I'm going to read to you what Slim Case, the artist / hype man, posted a couple days ago.
Okay.
Too many songs, too many albums. Una too they put on herself for pressure for this Nigeria sha. Take a chill pill and be like Rihanna. Do other things and come back and give us a fresh vibe. Your sounds are getting boring because they are becoming too much in a year. I owe them a song this year and that's it. It's only God that is new every morning, every day, every second, every day. Singles and albums, they kill Afrobeats gradually. It's not funny anymore.
I mean, that's his perspective. I don't agree with it, and I'll tell you why. When he gets an advance from a distributor, right, or from the label,
I already know where you're going with this.
He should go and ask the label that he's putting out a song in a year. It's not possible. An advance is a loan that you have to pay back by selling your music, and so the label gets money back. So you can only have this conversation, and it's interesting that he mentioned Rihanna. He didn't mention Kendrick. He didn't mention people who are assigned to labels. Do you understand? Rihanna is a billionaire by selling lingerie and
other fashion
items. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I wish he had called. I'm sure he tried searching for another artist to call, and then he noticed that all the other artists have been dropping music.
That much time,
you know. But so you can't afford to do what he's doing. And again, people can release as much music as possible. That's not what is causing it. What is causing it is the style of music. You know.
So do you think everyone's sounding same now? Same BPM, same.
Yes, because again, it's tied into we're trying to appeal to a certain kind of.
Does
audience.
it worry you?
No, because
as an individual,
because
who loves music.
Yeah.
I don't want you to speak from a place of I understand the terrain and I know what's going on.
Me personally,
as Osagie Alonge,
does it worry you? Because I think everybody's just fixated on new music. I'm still listening to albums that were put out 6-7 years ago,
and that's why it should worry you.
No, it shouldn't.
If you still listen to albums that dropped 6-7 years ago, it means what is dropping now is not palatable to you as an individual.
No, I'm listening to what dropped this year, last year, the year before,
but majorly 6-7 years ago.
No, not majorly.
But you just said it.
No, what I'm trying to say is albums that are released in this period. I'm listening to, bro. Yesterday I was listening to New Audition's 1992 album. I think music consumption has gotten to a point where social media has engineered us to believe that if the music is not fresh.
Quick one, you just mentioned New Edition. This off the road. Yeah. Jermaine Dupri had said they're the best group and the biggest group ever. Considering how that they broke up and everyone went platinum.
I agree. I agree because they have different versions of New Edition. Bobby Brown left, Johnny Gill came, Bill Bell DeVoe left, 3 of them left. They came back, then they all came back to do Can You Stand the Rain? They came back to do Hit Me Off in 1996. You know, so yeah.
All right, so back to the Afrobeats conversation. So
I think social media has now engineered us to believe like we have to be in the moment now, and then the only thing we have to be consuming is now. Okay, because I heard this song on TikTok, that's the song I have to put on my playlist because I have to sound like I'm new. Or as a content creator, I can't put an old record. I have to put a new record of what's trending to push my whatever content so people can listen to it because that's the song that's raining. And I think we're in this whole crazy circle of we never listen to music like this in the past. You bought a CD in the past. You bought that Craig David CD in the past. You rocked that CD for 1 year, bro. One
Yeah.
good year.
Yeah.
Remember,
Yeah.
you got that Celine Dion CD, that R. Kelly CD. You play that thing. You probably still have it back in Benin somewhere.
Yes.
It's still there. So why are we consuming music the same way we consume social media? That's the question. And that's what leads to everybody trying to turn it into production line business. We're not creating bottles of drinks here. You understand? It's art. Basquiat is passed away, but they still appreciate his art today. Why aren't we appreciating music that way? It is because technology has driven us to a point where everything is instantaneous and is grabbing for your attention. I'll tell you, social media is competing with music. Right now, if you're on Reels scrolling, your phone doesn't allow you to listen to the music. It's only when you pause the Reels, the music comes back on if you're listening, right? And that's why everything has gotten into this agile method where you just have to throw out more music that can compete with the social media platforms.
Do you think that also played a part in the attention span of the average Nigerian
It's
listener?
killing us, man. It's killing us. Songs are shorter. Do you understand? Songs now are being created for social media. I'm telling you, songs are being created for like TikTok. People are in studio and are like, okay, which catchy part can we have? Because this 15 seconds is what we will push on social media. We have the social media budget. We have TikTok budget. This 15 seconds is what we will put so that the thing can go viral. As a matter of fact, I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday and an epiphany hit us. Like, we came to a conclusion that some artists aren't artists. That's why their content do great on social media. Like, they do great on social media, but like nobody's listening to the music. And do you know why? They're actually not artists. They're cosplaying artists. You know how you can cosplay like anime when you go to like one of your Comic Cons and people really like, maybe you cosplay anime every day on social media and people like it, but you're really not into anime. You just cosplay it all the time. It's the same thing. There are a lot of people cosplaying being artists, but they're truly not about the art. But it does great on social media because aesthetic wise, it's great to watch. But people are listening to that and saying, you know what, I have to go and listen to the music. And that's why when true authentic artists do come out, you listen to it like, let me go and bump that stuff. So that's where we are right now.
I kind of agree with you. I need to place a value on our music now. I need to place a value on Afrobeats as it is today, as compared to Afrobeats 1.0, 2.0, and now.
I think it's at the highest. It's at an all-time high. Why? Because of the money that has been ingested to it, whether into the advances that they've given artists or the marketing behind some of these songs. The value is at the highest point right now. International labels are back. They all left in the 90s, and they all came back in like 2016 era up till now, still signing artists. You have distributors who are giving artists hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the value is at an all-time high right now, you know.
What's your idea or your thoughts on this conversation around the big three? We always just hear it on social media. Again, social media engineering such conversations and all of that about a certain big three, Davido, Wiz, and Burna. They're always in the forefront of conversations. They have fans who are crazy. I mean, you have been opportune to experience one
One or two viral moments.
So, but what do you think about the big three and the conversation around the big three? Do you think it helps us in any way?
I think when it came out, it definitely helped us. See, any industry needs moments, right? The tech industry needed that paystack flutter wave moment. You know, there are other companies doing amazingly well. You need those moments to curate in history. You need those moments to sell, you know, the whole concept of Afrobeats, right? So you see the big three alone, right? We saw the big three with Drake. That's what led to the whole beef. It's because somebody said me, Kenny, and Cole, me, Drake, and Kenny are the big three, and someone said no, it's just Big Me, and then it turned into to the point where someone is suing the label. You know,
by the way.
Well, hey, you know, so you get what I'm saying. So did it help? Just it's good branding. The big three. And they were the biggest three at the time.
You use the word where?
Yeah, because you
Not
now
anymore?
see it's hard to, and I said where because you then have new entrants in the game who are doing just as big as the big three. You see Thames, Rema, Ashake, they're just as big as your Afrobeat stars now. And so we don't know whether we want to name it Big Four, Big Six. Shout out to Steve. Steve will say 6 to 7 dead or alive. Top 6 to 7 dead or alive. I don't know what he's doing with that. You understand what I'm saying? So now it's morphing, and we're then going to another era. It's like how we go from one generation to the other. We can work this together. First generation, right? We said Remedies, Plantation Boys, and Tribesmen. And when the second generation, the entrance of the second generation came, the band Solo, Two-Face, Idibia, and P Square, right? It's not like the first generation went as big as them then. They were just, as a matter of fact, when the bands were coming, Two-Face was already more established.
Yeah.
But then their crossovers, it's not a sharp cut for every generation. When the Bankies, the NATOs, the MIs, One Days and Nights came in the 2008, the band was just as big. As a matter of fact, when those guys came, the big three were still P Square, the band, and Two-Face.
Yes, I agree.
You understand? So they all morph into each other. So let's just enjoy this whole segregation, fan stands, and all of this. Why can't we just enjoy everything together? That's what I love. So as I say, oh, these guys are the big guys. There's another big three. And then what will happen is a gradual handover. What I would say, however, is that the Wiz, Davido, and Burna sets, they don't want to give up so easily, and it just shows how things are changing, and you have to give them props. They are now over 10 years in the game. As a Nigerian artist, if you've done over 10 years in the game, you're solidified
on the level that they have done it.
Yes, they will still shut down venues in and outside this country. So you have to give them props for that. But it's very important to look at the next sets and be excited, just as excited about the next set, and usher them into the game, because that's what the whole thing is about. You know what they say about, like, music is youth culture, and youth culture, like, they own the culture, and it's violent. They'll take you from the guys before, in the words of Jimmy Carragher, leave the football before the football leaves you.
It's good that you mentioned a few names, right? I need you to put a mark on our torch bearers in 2025 and beyond. Potential torch bearers, people who you consider torch bearers now. I'd love for you to just name a few.
I mean, the tricky thing about this is that you always forget one person and then somebody gets like, mad.
How about me?
Yeah, but we mentioned like Thames, Ashake, Rema, Victoni, of course, Omale. You leave him out of the conversation. He's just as big as the other guys, in my opinion, musically, sonically, especially because he came with a new style, slow down the tempo as well. Those are like some of the big guys. There's so many. There's Lil J. I love what Lil J is doing in a lane of his own, making amazing music. See, it's escaping me now. Let me do this like everybody else. If I haven't mentioned your name, just now I was thinking about you. But there's so many. There's some Ira Star. Come on, look at what she's doing. See, growing up, Odumodu Black. Look at what he's doing. Do you understand? As a hip hop artist, playing in that space, dominating, just as big, viral moments, shooting in and out. He has Skepta, Stormzy on his album. Bro, when we were growing up, when we saw international local collaborations, it was a big deal.
Gold.
Now it's like
gold.
Everybody has
a Two-Face Mary J. Blige collab that never happened.
We saw the pictures.
And a snippet of the record in the studio, and we went crazy.
Or that funny R. Kelly Two-Face
record.
Like, so you see things like that, right? You have to give them props. You have to give them. So many people doing amazing things. Black Bones has been here since 2011. He's still dropping another album. Longevity. But he looks so young. People kind of overlook it. But again, 2011, when he did the zombie freestyle,
the rap man,
and he's dropping in, so many people. Mode 9 is still dropping albums. So many people doing good things. But like, I have a bias for the new guys who are just coming in, because I feel like once you are fresh and new, it's more exciting. And I think that's what you should really always focus on, to give them an advantage. And that's why media needs to be a bit more biased towards the new guys, because they're bringing something different and fresh. That's
awesome. I need to put you on some new Good Girl LA. You checked that out?
I checked out. LA. Oh, come on, boss it. Yeah, listen to the project.
She's stunning. dropped the project spearheaded by Andre Vibes.
Shout out to Andre Vibes. And I like that collaboration between like an Andre Vibes who is very revered but also very reserved, can understand what an artist wants, and you listen to the project and come on, dope project.
Awesome, man. Osagie, gotta let you go, man.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you for doing this.
Appreciate you too. We just met up recently. We've known each other for over a decade, and we're just meeting, and the respect is mutual. Thank you so much, man.
Appreciate you a great deal. Wish you a safe journey back to
wherever I'm coming from. I did, man. Nigeria is always my home, man.
Big love, man.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Big love. Osagie Alonge, the man, the myth, the legend in conversation. See you some more time.